Good morning. Hey, hello, designer grandma. Good morning, Sister Amina. Good morning to everyone. I've got to give it a few minutes to kind of get in. Glad that you all are here. Glad that you're here. All right, here we go. I'm getting it together now. So I just, yes. Oh, you're not ready, Sister Danette, with ugly Christmas anything? Sister Powell, I didn't get a chance to send out a note. You're right. Zoom has a technical difficulty. Doesn't work, but I wasn't thinking. Remember that before I come on here, I am on with my own class at my local church. And so Zoom will not let me open. Two meetings at once. So hopefully before this is over, maybe I'll have them to text me when they get out of class. Because they were rocking. They were going too hard for me to say, hey, can I have my Zoom account back? So I didn't say anything at all. I just slipped out and figured I could come over here to Facebook and hang out. So we'll try the Zoom again, but I got to figure that out because I am the one who has the business account, which doesn't kick us off in 40 minutes. And so I like them to have as much time as they need to substantively discuss the lesson for the week. So I'm sorry that my class is still on. Here, I'm texting them now to say, let me know when you're done. Let me know when you're done. Let me know when you're off of Zoom. All right, I just sent them a note. So if they happen to get off, we will still try to let a couple of you click onto the Zoom link. I'm really sorry because I was looking forward to that. And this is my ugly Christmas dress. This is it. It's got a big bow. The bottom of the dress looks just like this. It's my ugly Christmas dress. I've been waiting all year to wear my ugly Christmas dress. But because I'm at church, I did not. I really could have gone. I could have gone pretty extensively with this, but I didn't do it because I don't want to be a distraction to the worship. So yeah, this is as good as get for Ugly Christmas Day. So I can't wait. By the way, if you did have on your ugly sweater or mask, hold on here. I want you to email your pic to ThatSundaySchoolGirl@gmail.com. Hold on here at gmail.com. I want you to email me your pictures. You have until 11 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time to email me your pictures. If you had on your ugly sweater, your ugly mask, your ugly dress, you have until 11 to send me your picture. I'm going to create kind of a gallery on social media. I'm going to let social media be the judge of who has the best ugly attire, and there will be prizes that are awarded later this evening. I'm going to leave the voting open. I'll leave the voting open until 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. So between 11, actually it's going to take me until about 12 to get the pictures up. Actually, maybe I'll leave the window open for 6 hours. 6 hours of voting. So from noon till 6, I will let people vote, and then I will announce the winners if you had on your ugly attire. And please, it must be today's ugly attire. Again, I'm glad that you're here. For those of you who are just getting on, I can't get on Zoom just yet because my Sunday school class is still in session. So I made my co-teacher the host so I could come out. Good morning to every single one of you. I am so ready to discuss this lesson. Let's pray, and then I'm going to go ahead and give you the icebreaker that the Zoom folks were going to get. And I need you to, I'm going to read the first 3 participants that I see. So gracious God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for another opportunity, God, to study your word. We thank you for a day that was not promised to us. And we thank you for the reasonable portion of life, health, and strength that you give us. God, thank you for this lesson that comes to provoke us, to challenge us. God, we desire to see a familiar story in a new way. Never let the story of the birth of Christ, its significance, its meaningfulness becomes so routine to us that we blow it off as just something that we know or something that we hear this time of year. Never cause us to just be given to the commercialism of this season, but to be reminded that this was always your promise and it was always your plan, and that it is so critical to our understanding and our acceptance of what it means to be your people and the gift that you gives us, that gives us eternal life. God, I pray for every person who will be present on our call today. I pray for every individual who will catch the replay. I pray for every church today that's open in your name, that you'll meet your people at the point of their need. We love you and we give you glory in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, let's see here. So I'm just curious, before I ask the question, who actually has on your ugly sweater or you have your ugly mask handy? If that's you, say me in the comments so I can see. I feel like I'm missing something now. I wanted that Zoom so badly. I wanted it so badly. All right. So let me know if that's you. Let me know if that's you. All right. And if I'm able to open the Zoom link, if my class gets off and I'm able to open, I will not be able to stream the Zoom link because this meeting has already started on YouTube, but I will screenshot those who come on to Zoom. Oh, Sister Amina, Sister Evelyn, awesome. So when they get done, when they text me, you can still log into Zoom. We'll at least take a selfie in Zoom. And that just means that I've got something to figure out. And for anybody who teaches, this is just one of those things. I'm always asking teachers, okay, no, Sister Cheryl, no ugly sweater. You got a t-shirt, good. That's why I wear my ugly dress. You do it the way you have to do it. But I want to encourage those of you who teach. Like sometimes I think we're really hard on ourselves when things don't go just like we wanted them to go. And I think that people respect you and they support you. So thank you for supporting me in what we were attempting to do. And yeah, like I said, I will figure out how I can get my Sunday school class maybe figure out another Zoom account. All right. So for our quick little icebreaker, God allowed the wise men to see the star to guide them to where the Christ child was. God can be seen in everyday things. For those wise men who were used to studying stars, the star wasn't special. Studying stars, following stars, seeing stars wasn't special. To them, it was an everyday sighting. I need for you to look around the room where you're sitting right now and pick one object and tell me how you see God in that object. Find one object and look around and tell me, just type it in the comments. How do you see God in that thing? So I'm drinking water right now, right? So I didn't have coffee today. This is actually water. And when I think about water, I think about its ability to wash. So in water, I can think about God's ability to wash sin away, to wash sin away. Oh, in tears with technology, Sister Danette. No, we don't do tears with technology. We're the boss of technology. We try. The thing is, we can't break it, and we can always try again. So if you think this is the last time I'm going to try a Zoom call, you could not be more wrong, because what? I do not like to be defeated. So I'm disappointed, but I will not be defeated. By the way, while I'm watching for your everyday items to come in, I see that there are 80 of you online, but only 23 of you have clicked that thumbs up like button. So go ahead and click that. Doesn't cost you a thing to do that. All right. I see that a couple of you see light. Jesus is the light. Absolutely. Thank you, Sister Vanessa. The light, God's clarity, Sister Jeanette says. Let's see here. Brother Christopher, the Christmas tree, green is clean to me. Got you. The TV, because it's used to spread the gospel. A candle burning because God sent his shining light. Sister Phyllis Jackson Polk says a clock. There are times and seasons for everything. Sister Amina, you looked at your water as well, and you see that God is pure. Absolutely. On the desk lamp, Sister Brown says, I see his amazing light. The bright gold wreath, Sister Valerie says, God is and perfect. I've seen some beautiful wreaths this season. Beautiful. In the sunrise, I see God. In your dog certificate, you see light. In your PC technology, BJ Phillips, you see the ability that God gives us to stay connected. I absolutely love that. Oh, wow, Sister Amina, thank you so much for blessing our class this morning. You are always a leader in that respect. If you want to share, and I always forget to do this, but if you are willing and want to share in our Sunday school lesson today, you can do what Sister Amina did, and that's hit the super chat button, or there's Givelify or Cashapp, and you clearly know that your gifts go to help us do ministry. They help us do ministry. All right, so I see so much in here. You have a set of coffee mugs with love written on them. Brother Kevin says, and it's a reminder of love every day. Sister Tracy says that the salt shaker tells us that God is the salt seasoning of the earth. We are the salt of the earth. God flavors all of us. And I love these because, again, it really helps us to see that God is in everyday things. So when we were going into this lesson today, looking at the story of the wise men, many of us, I know if you're like me, you're trying to figure out, this is how my class actually opened up. I'm trying to figure out, why did the authors choose this lesson? What does it mean? Like, do we just automatically insert the Christmas story in this time every year? What is it that God wants us to see? So as we explore this lesson today, I want us to remember that we're sitting this conversation inside of the call of God in the New Testament. So what is it that we can learn about God and the call of God as we go through these lessons? I hope that you've been keeping some sort of notebook as you're going through these lessons, and I hope that you're challenging yourselves to see different aspects of what it means to be called, what it looks like to respond when we are called. We've asked every week if you know what you're called to do, and some of you have shared what you're called to do. And then there are some of you who say, well, no, I don't know what God has called me to do just yet, but I'm paying attention. I'm keeping my ears open to God. And so as we go through this lesson with the wise men, I don't think that there's anything different. I think that we're going to be able to layer on some things that we see as it relates to what does it mean to be called? How does God direct us? What is he showing us? Thank you, Sister Jeanette, Sister Powell, and my goodness, Merry Christmas to you, Brother Kevin. Thank you so much. I love you all. Thank you for being supportive. Okay, if you didn't know, I'm at church and I'm looking at a window, so people wave at me when they walk by. All right, forgive me there. A regal response to a holy light, Matthew chapter 2, verses 7 through 15. The wise men honor the child Jesus by presenting gifts to him as our Bible truth. Our memory verse is verse 11. And by the end, we're going to agree that the wise men point to the universality. That's a word I haven't been able to say all. Innocently due to the world's brokenness and sin, and join with peoples of every ethnicity and culture to worship Jesus, the King of all nations. So let's begin our reading. Chapter 2, verse 7 reads, Then Herod, when he had privately called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, Go and search diligently for the young child. And when you have found him, bring word again, that I may come and worship him also. When they had heard the king, they departed. And lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. And when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary, unto him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Being warned of God in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed into their own country another way. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise, and take the young child and his mother, and flee into Egypt. And be thou there until I bring thee word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. And when he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night, and departed into Egypt, and was there unto the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, Out of Egypt have I called my son. This is the regal response to holy light, which Sister Deborah tells us is a response that we are to emulate as we look at their response to this newborn king. How many of you participated in a Christmas pageant as young people? And if you did, who were you in the Christmas play? Tell me that in the comments. Who were you in the Christmas play? Who were you? I absolutely was Mary in the Christmas play. And at some point this week, I'm going to find that picture my mother is looking for, and I'm going to give you the joy of seeing me working it out in my Mary costume in the Christmas play. Honey, I was something special with that towel wrapped around my head. Yes, I was. Oh, Brother Joseph was one of the wise men. I love it. Did you have a Burger King crown, Brother Joseph? You probably did. That's what our wise men had. But as we think about that and looking at this lesson, our ideas as children are somewhat shattered a bit because the actual scene with the wise men coming is not exactly like we were taught it to be. It was a bit different in that the wise men actually did not show up at the manger scene. So let's see, Sister Thomas, Cheryl. Sister Cheryl was one of the animals because she couldn't sing. That is hilarious. I love it. Well, we all have great memories, but today we're going to talk about not even getting so much lost on the scene of the wise men, but really looking at the role. And remember again to think about what we're each called to do. As we're looking again at Matthew's gospel, we know that he's writing to these Jewish listeners, and he has already, his premise is that Jesus is the Messiah. He's already argued that by genealogy. He's argued it through the virgin birth. And now he's actually talking about the acknowledgement of this regal baby, the regal response. What is due a regal response? That which is holy is due the response that is appropriate for one that is holy. And that's what we see with these wise men. Now, if you went back into the beginning of chapter 2, I know we begin at verse 7 as our printed text, but you needed to kind of go back and see that these wise men, first of all, let's talk about the wise men. Brother Kevin, I know that. Brother Joseph, I know that they had you at the manger scene, but it's a little bit different here. The first thing that we're going to note is that wise men do come from the east, but there is no number that is given. So there's no such thing as the 3 wise men. They do give 3 different gifts, but the magi is another name for wise men, and they would have been together, and it could have been 2 magi, but we know that they were men who understood the stars. They understood the positioning of stars. Now, I quickly want to the difference between astronomy and astrology, because I know that as believers, we don't follow astrology, things like the zodiac. We don't give the stars, inanimate objects, power and authority in our lives. We don't give those things power to say, you know, who we'll marry, who we're compatible with, what our careers will be, what our financial states are going to be. And I'm never going to give the stars and the planets the power to decide what kind of day I'm going to have, what kind of season I'm in. But by science, these men understood the stars and positioning. And so this particular star, they know that there's something very different about it. They also know that it is the sun. These magi were actually pagan. And they were Gentile. And so I think that becomes very interesting as we talk about the universality of Christ and how he uses men in his plan that technically are not believers. At least at this point, they are not believers. And so God brings these men into his overall plan. Don't forget to look toward the westerns. Okay, I heard, Sister Cheryl, that we are to see the Christmas star tomorrow evening when Jupiter and Saturn, I think, align. We could talk more about that. In fact, we might be able to see it during Markup Monday. I have to look at the timing. But with these wise men, they begin to travel and they get to Jerusalem. And when they get into Jerusalem, they are not quite in the right place just yet. And I think that's important. I think we should kind of talk about their journey and understand what is it that God is sort of showing us as well. They are called to do a thing. They are called to follow this light. They're called to see where this child is. And now on their journey, doing what they're supposed to be doing, the first thing is they get a little bit off track. How many times have there been in your life when you have been doing what it is you believe that God has shown you or told you to do, but you didn't exactly end up in the right place? Your heart was right, your intentions were right, but you still weren't quite in the place that you were to be. That's the situation when they end up in Bethlehem. Or in Jerusalem. I'm sorry, they're supposed to be in Bethlehem, but they're in Jerusalem. And so they're asking around, they're asking questions. Where is the place that this king is. He's been born. Where is this king? It is in verse 2, I believe it is, saying, where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east, and we are come to worship him. So they come in asking questions. They're trying to find out where this child is. And Herod hears about these wise men who are in his area. They're in asking questions. Now, first of all, when we talk about these wise men, they would have traveled as a caravan. So now you've got people who've probably seen the caravan. They know that these men are asking questions. And let's talk about Herod for just a second, right? Herod was this really smart man, capable of a lot. He built cities. He sort of had that, someone like this. They sort of have business intelligentsia, but they have this propensity to go off on Twitter and say crazy things and declare that they won elections that have already been declared. Well, what I mean is he was an individual who, when things didn't go his way, his temper always went on 10, and it usually resulted in someone being killed. So when he had gotten angry before, he had cost his wife her life, his children, his mother-in-law. It's just what he did when he was angry. And here's the thing about it. Everybody in the city, things were not going to be good. And so therefore, the people are also a bit concerned. In fact, it says this way, and all of Jerusalem, verse 3 says that Herod was troubled when he heard about these wise men, and all of Jerusalem was troubled with him. Jerusalem wasn't troubled because the wise men came in and had questions. They were troubled because they already knew when Herod gets mad, it's not going to be good. And so these men are asking questions. In verse 5, they said unto him, in verse 4, the Herod gathers all of the chief priests and the scribes, and he demands to know where the Christ is going to be born. And they are able to answer him. I want to point out something pretty quickly before we get into our printed text, that we're looking at a response to a holy light, a regal response to a holy light. And that is absolutely, Sister Amina, he was paranoid. We're going to talk as we get to verse 7. It's important to know who's been present. We've got the wise men, there is Herod, and then there are the chief priests and the scribes. Am I giving you the right group? Yes, the chief priests and the scribes, verse 4. Each of them has a response. And even today, people have different responses to Jesus. The first response is the wise men. We see the response of worship from the wise men. And that's what our lesson takes us to. These, again, are the magi who have come, and they know that they intend to bring worship to this child. The second response that we see is worry or concern. There's worship, there's worry and concern. And that comes from the paranoid Herod that Sister Amina points out. He is like the original Christmas Grinch. Why? What is his issue? Like, what's your deal, Herod? The deal is that Herod knew that he did not occupy the throne lawfully. He always knew that there was a rightful king. He was appointed to be there, but because he was uncomfortable in his own place, because he was feeling threatened, he worried every time. He lived a life looking over his shoulder. And don't you know that there are people sometimes who don't get into places in the right way, and they spend their time, instead of being productive and doing what needs to be done, they live their lives looking over their shoulders, worrying about who's going to take my power, who's going to take my position, who's going to knock me out of place. And Herod continually lived in that space. And so, first of all, when these wise men would have come in, they would have come in as a caravan. And can't you imagine a Herod who sees or knows that a caravan with camels, and the camels came low. My godfather preached this message once. The camels are coming and they are loaded with gifts. The town loaded with gifts. So perhaps Herod thought, these men, there are gifts coming. They are coming to worship me. At minimum, they're coming to negotiate with me. Maybe these are important men from somewhere. But instead, they came asking, can you point us to the real king? So this man is now a worried person because what he values the most feels threatened to him. He's lost his confidence in his space, in that space. And then there's a third group of people that I just tied up the, and think about that. There are people today who have these same three responses to Jesus. In 2020, when you mention Jesus, there are people who are sold out like you and I, and we are worshipers of God, true worshipers. There are some people who are worried about Jesus being present in their lives. Why? Because it means that I've got to give up things that are important to me, things that I value, things that I've worked hard to protect. And then there are priests and these scribes. I know there's a Bible. I know what it says. In fact, how do we know that they know what it said? Well, because when Herod demanded to know where the child was, they were able to go to the Bible and point it out. Hey, the book says he's supposed to be born in Bethlehem. I guess he's in Bethlehem. So there's this really unconcerned attitude toward Jesus. So three different kinds of worshipers. Then that brings us into our printed text in verse 7. Where Herod now has called a secret meeting. And you and I know nothing good happens in the dark when these meetings are happening in secret. There are reasons that people choose to meet in secret. There are reasons that they choose to keep others out of the conversation. And Herod, we've already determined, Sister Amina told us that he was a paranoid leader. And Herod always had some ulterior motive or plan. And so he has a meeting with the wise men. And what he wants to ask about is this star. Tell me about this star that you've seen. Tell me more, because Herod knew that if he could get more information, he could take out the thing that began to threaten him. He could take out his own hindrance. And so he inquires of this star. Now, these wise men who are so book smart don't realize that Herod does not mean them well. He does not have good intentions toward them. We've got to be careful. Book smarts are great, but we've also got to have discernment about the people who are around us. Let me just tell you about me. I am leery of people who are asking me too many questions, because people who are sometimes asking questions, oftentimes it's not that they're looking for an answer. You've got to watch folks who are trying to bait you. And I'm especially sensitive to people because sometimes people make us so comfortable in spaces of talking. That's why we've got to be careful in this season how you use your words. Be careful who wants to pick your brain on everything. Be careful about the conversations you enter into. Why do you need this information? But they never thought past that. And they began to talk to Herod. He wants to know, when did you see this child? What happened? And so he then gives them directives to go into the city. You go looking for the young child. And he told them to go diligently. And when you found him, you bring me back a report. Now, we talked about the wise men being magi, wise men. And I know that we grew up thinking about them as kings. In fact, this morning, I had an emotional moment. So you mean I can't sing We Three Kings of Orient Are? Because I really like that song. But when you think about this, if indeed they were kings, why would kings take directives from another king? They wouldn't have to do that. Herod had no jurisdiction over these men at all, and yet they followed what Herod said. So that leads me to the conclusion that they were not kings at all. So when they hear Herod, they depart, they follow the star to the east, and then they come to where the star stands still. I also want to say here that these men have been following this star for months. They've been following the star for months, and God never fails to show them where they're supposed to be going. Let's relate that back to the call. God is calling you. And he's not going to lead you out there and then withdraw the thing that he's using to pull you closer to him. He's not going to pull you out in the middle of something and then pull the rug out from under you and let you fall. God continues to guide them until they come to the place that he has appointed for them to be. God is going to continue to guide you until he gets you to the point that he wants you to be. It may not even mean that you might not get a little bit off track. the wise men ended up in Jerusalem before they went to Bethlehem. But God continues to guide them until they are where they are supposed to be. Where are they supposed to be? Verse 11 tells us, here goes our childhood being shattered again, that they didn't show up at the stable. There was no manger. We don't see all the animal scenes around. There are not 3 wise men on the left and 3 shepherds on the right. They show up at a house. They end up at the house where the child is. Sister Amina tells us that God will reveal to us when he is ready. And that's what happened. The star appeared and it reappeared when God was ready. Absolutely. Sister Terry is absolutely right. There is no shifting. God is faithful and he will continue to guide us. He gives us just what we need. Let's see here, Sister Powell, I'm with you. Our whole childhoods are being shattered because this child is actually in a house. And notice that he's not only in a house, but he's a child. And so we know that this child is at least 2 years old. Some commentaries say that he talk about how we also know, other than the fact that he's in a house, it tells us he's a child, but we also know when we cross-reference in other gospels that Mary has already made her offering. The women were required after their time of purification, according to the Old Testament, to make a sacrifice as a gratitude sacrifice for their child. And so women who had means would sacrifice a lamb. Women who had no money, women who were poor, would sacrifice a pigeon or it may be a turtle dove. I need to double check myself, but they would make that sacrifice, and Mary made the sacrifice of the poor. We know that Mary made the sacrifice of the poor. And so that's also how we know that there's been some time, because had the wise men come with this kind of treasure before she got home, she would have had to make the sacrifice of the rich. And so they come to the house where the child is. And when they saw him, when they had their first encounter with Jesus, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. I'm just curious, what was your response when you truly encountered Jesus? And I'm watching for it in the comments. What was your response when you truly encountered Jesus? Verse 11 tells us that when they were inside, they found the young child and his mother, and their response, this joy, the overflow of their joy was worship. You've got to keep yourself situated in a place of joy for true worship to flow out of you. Anybody can praise, but only those true, God seeks true worshipers, those who can worship out of a sense of pure joy. Sister Danette says, Brother Kevin says it was relief. Sister Shirley says it was praise. Sister Brenda said it was tears of joy. What was your encounter with Jesus? And so their response, this overwhelming joy that comes out of them. Now I want you to watch this. They have come prepared to worship. And when you know you are going to meet Jesus, you need to do everything to always come prepared to worship. Come prepared to pour out. Come prepared to give him your best. Come prepared to empty out yourself. We see that in them. They see this. They fall down and they begin to worship him. They begin to outpour the worship of him. They tell him who he is. Oh, what would happen in Sunday school if in these comments you just began to worship Jesus? I'm going to watch while you worship, and we're going to talk about as they worship and they began to fall to their knees, they open up their treasures unto him. These camels that have come loaded with gifts, they open up their treasures. They open up treasures of gold and frankincense and worship will cause you to give. Your love gives. We talked about this last quarter. For God so loved the world, John 3:16, that he gave. The love that God had caused him to give his son to the world. And here are these men, and the gifts they give are lavish. They bring their best. They bring gold, which was a gift that was fit for kingship. They bring frankincense. Frankincense was actually a burial spice, which we thought was very interesting as we discussed it in my local church class, that was almost foreshadowing the life that this child, in celebrating his birth, you acknowledge that he was born to die. And not only the gold, frankincense, but myrrh, which was a prize that was a gift for a savior. None of these were things that you just pulled out every single day. And so they brought their treasure. Sister Evelyn, I love that as well. They opened up their treasure. What treasure today do you need to open up to God? What do you have that you can bring to a king? As you look at what God is calling you to do, understanding that he doesn't call everybody to do the same thing. When you open up your treasure, you'll find such amazing things there. Open your time, your talent, your gifts. Open your treasure to God. And so they give gifts that are fit for a king. These men who are revered and respected. This was great for me too. That even though they were book smart and respected, they were not too good to humble themselves to a king. None of us, no matter who we are, no matter how brilliant we are, no matter how much our balance sheets, our net worth, these men were men of net worth, great net worth. And yet they were not too wonderful to come and humble themselves to a king, to actually humble themselves to a baby. I also look at the heart of these men. I want to talk about that for a second. Because we've talked about the lesson aim is that we'll understand the universality of Jesus and what he came to do. And as we're looking at these men, I told you that they were pagan, they were Gentiles, and yet they had the heart that Herod didn't have. They had the heart that those people, the people in Jerusalem, didn't have. They had the heart that led them to be diligent in their search for the king, even though they may have been a little naive. And that's interesting to me that God can sometimes use those who are a little naive. God will use those, even sometimes we'll look at folks who come from what we perceive to be the outside and wonder, how do they come in? And God can use them so powerfully, because sometimes, we can take things for granted as people who have grown up in church. And that's why I say this Christmas story, I refuse to take it for granted. Because the moment you begin to get too common with the thing, you lose your appreciation for it. But sometimes people from the outside, they don't know it like we know it. It's not just on the calendar. It's not a script. So when they come in, their thirst for it, their desire for it, their ability and their willingness to pursue it is so much different than people all the time. And so these men, they were men who had the heart to pursue, and without question, they came with a heart to worship, and God continued to guide them. These men also not only understood stars, but they understood and they interpreted dreams. So again, I want to say that these men did not fit the profile. They didn't fit the profile of the ones who would be searching for the star. They weren't even, the ones that people would have said, you're the one. But God chose them as a part of his plan. In verse 12, these men understood dreams, and God dealt with them in dreams. And so he gives them a warning. Remember that they had been sent by Herod. Go find this baby. When you find him, come back and let me know. Okay, Herod. See, now at least been negotiating for something. Now, what's in this for me, Herod? But no, they were going to come back. And in this dream, they are warned to not go back the way that they came. Don't go back to Herod. There is danger there. So they're not turned, and they take a different route home. What do we learn there? That's no small nugget there. That's no small nugget. When you are on assignment, when God gives you what to do, when he shows you what to do, keep your sensitivity to God. Keep your eyes open. Keep your ears open. God will not drop you in the process. He will continue to guide you. And sometimes his guidance will reroute you to help you avoid danger. And so that's what God does for the wise men. He helps them to avoid danger. But at the same time, the loyalty of these men, that came into question. Are we going to be loyal to Herod, or will we be loyal now to God? And having experienced God in this way, having seen the Messiah, they demonstrate a loyalty to God. But that also puts us back in the vicious cycle that we've already established of Herod, who really likes things to go his way. He likes for people to do what he says do, the way that he says do it. And when these wise men do not come back, that sets Herod off again. And we've already established that when he gets angry, he goes on a killing spree. This is when he sets into play a national genocide where he wants to kill every child in the land that is 2 years or under, because he doesn't know which child it is, so that I don't miss it. You know, all these babies, they kind of look alike. Let me just not, every child that's 2, they need to die. So here, even though I want to talk about the call again, go back to last week. You're going to call his name Jesus. He's going to have an assignment. The call on his life is that he's going to save his people from their sins. Years old. There are times that people will seek to kill what God has put inside of you, and God will protect. God is going to protect what he has assigned in your life. How do we know that? Because in verse 13, when they were departed, when the wise men were gone, here comes the angel again. Note that in Matthew, every time that God needs to get a word to Joseph, he does it through dreams. Have you paid attention to how God speaks to you? Does he minister to you through a certain way? But every time he needed Joseph to make moves, he gave him what to do in a dream. And so the angel comes by night. Angel comes into Joseph and lets him know that you are to take your child and go into Egypt, and you'll stay there until I come back, and I will let you know that it's safe. How are you going to know it's going to be safe? Because Herod is going to be gone. He is going to die. In fact, here was something interesting. The angel says to take the child and his mother and go to Egypt. Just a little small note there. This is the Son of God. So at no point does the angel refer to, I don't think you ever see Jesus referred to as, it's never your son, Joseph. The angel doesn't take your son. No, take the child and his mother. They were a protected class. And so Joseph takes his family by night. He goes into Egypt. This had to happen because, again, Matthew is documenting this is everything that has already been prophesied. The last note, and I'm wrapping up because it's 10:31, is that Joseph, now you ask why certain things have to happen. And I'm going to continue to say that when we look at God's overall plan, we must remember that God is in control. And that's kind of challenging for people like me and like you, because it's not that we don't love God and we don't trust him, but some of us struggle with control issues. I like to be in control. I like to know how all of the pieces are moving. I like to know what's going to happen next. I like to think about, well, what's going to happen if this doesn't work? But God is in control. Notice that Joseph doesn't get time. Once again, he doesn't open his mouth. Just like last week. He doesn't ask any questions. My last note here. As we continue to talk about the call and when God calls us to things, I think what I learned most in this lesson is that a call is not without conflict. And along your journey, as you're called, you may get off track. You may run into a bad actor. You may go into spaces that are foreign. You may even have to be redirected. But you've always got to trust that God is in control. He knows what he's doing. He is the master planner. And the biggest thing is that he has no defeat set for our life. There is a word spoken over your life as we continue to look at a genocide set in place by Herod. There was a word spoken over his life by his father. And so no matter what else happened in the earth, no matter what strange stuff popped up, what unplanned things popped up, there was still a word that was spoken over his life and a call that he had to fulfill. I want to close with that I know that this season, 2020, has been crazy. The most overused word of the year is unprecedented, according to the news. It's been an unprecedented year, but I want you to stay focused that there is a word spoken over your life and that you are still in the place that God has ordained you to be. And no matter what conflict has come your way, there's a word. God is the master planner, Sister Deborah tells us, and he is in control. And so let's be mindful as we go into this week. remembering that there are 3 responses to this light. Are you going to be a worshiper? Will you be a worrier? Or will you be someone who is unconcerned at all about Jesus? It is my prayer that you will be a worshiper, that you will remember the specialness of this season. I want to say Merry Christmas to each of you. I will see some of you tomorrow and Mark Monday. But if I don't talk to you again before Christmas, Merry Christmas to you. I pray the best for your family, that you will stay safe in your choices to celebrate, and that you will remind others about the importance of this season. Listen, I'm headed into service. If you don't have a church that you're worshiping with today, I invite you to Dominion Word Ministries, Church of God in Christ. We are live right now on YouTube here, and we're also live on Facebook. I love you. Don't forget, if you had on your ugly sweater, your ugly mask, go ahead and email me your selfie at ThatSundaySchoolGirl@gmail.com. And please visit my social media today to vote for those who participated, and we'll announce the winners a little bit later tonight. Everybody have a great Sunday. Bye-bye.